Rich Dad Poor Dad Introduction. My name is Robert Kiyosaki, and I grew up with the influence of two very different father figures in my life. One was my biological father, highly educated, hardworking, and respected in society, whom I lovingly called my poor dad. The other was my best friend's father, a man who never finished college but was financially savvy and wealthy, whom I came to know as my rich dad. Both of them shaped my thinking in very different ways. One taught me the value of education and a stable job, while the other taught me the value of financial intelligence and creating wealth. This story is about the lessons I learned standing between these two worlds. The two fathers. As a young boy in Hawaii, I often compared the advice I received from both of my dads. Poor Dad's advice was clear: go to school, get good grades, and find a secure job with benefits. He believed in climbing the corporate ladder. He saw money as something you earned from working hard, and the key to success was education in the traditional sense. Rich Dad's advice was different. Rich Dad's advice was different. Learn how money works. Don't just work for money, make money work for you. He believed in building businesses, investing, and creating systems where money would grow even when you weren't working. At first, as a kid, I was confused. Who was right? Both men were intelligent, hardworking, and cared deeply about me, yet their philosophies about life and money were worlds apart. This was the beginning of my journey of learning, not just from school, but from real-life experiences. The lesson begins when I was just 9 years old. My best friend Mike and I wanted to make money. We noticed that some of our classmates had things we didn't: new baseball gloves, bikes, and toys. We wanted to be rich. So one Saturday morning, we came up with a plan. We thought, let's learn how to make money. We started collecting empty toothpaste tubes made of lead, melting them down and creating fake coins using plaster molds. In our young minds, it seemed brilliant. But when my father, Poor Dad, found out, he laughed and said, "That's illegal, boys. You can't print your own money. If you want to learn about money, talk to Mike's dad." This was the moment that changed everything. Mike's father, my future rich dad, agreed to teach us, but under one condition: we would work for him first. Not for money, but for the experience. So every Saturday, Mike and I worked 3 hours at one of Rich Dad's little stores, stocking shelves and cleaning. He paid us just 10 cents an hour. At first it felt exciting, we were actually earning. But soon, frustration set in. The work was hard, the pay was tiny, and I began to wonder if this was what life was about. After a few weeks, I complained to Mike, "This isn't fair. We're working hard and we're getting nothing. Rich Dad is cheating us." Mike calmly said, "That's part of the lesson. My dad always says life doesn't teach you in classrooms. If you want to learn, you need to observe carefully." Confused and angry, I decided to confront Rich Dad. Meeting Rich Dad, I went to him and said, "You didn't keep your promise. You said you would teach us, but all you've done is make us work like slaves for almost nothing." Rich Dad smiled. He said, "Good. Most people complain about their jobs, their bosses, and their pay, but they never stop to learn the real lesson. I want you to feel the difference between working for money and learning to have money work for you." I was puzzled. Rich Dad continued, "The world pushes people around. Life pushes them around. Some people let it happen, and they spend their whole lives complaining. Others learn the lesson and use that push to grow stronger. Which kind of person will you be that day?" He planted the first seed of financial education in me. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. The shift in thinking. From then on, my perspective changed. I began to see the world differently. I noticed how adults around me feared not having enough money. I saw my poor dad working harder and harder, studying for promotions while still worrying about bills. I saw my rich dad smiling, relaxed, even though he had businesses to run. He didn't fear money. He controlled it. Slowly, I realized education wasn't just about reading books or passing exams. True education was about understanding how money works, how people think, and how opportunities are created. And that was just the beginning. My real lessons with Rich Dad were only starting. Lessons in financial education. After that first powerful lesson, Rich Dad started giving Mike and me deeper insights into the world of money. He wanted us to see what most people never see. One day, he explained, most people say they want to be rich, but they spend their whole lives chasing paychecks. They believe more money will solve their problems, but they don't understand that the real problem is not money, it's lack of financial education. He taught us about the difference between assets and liabilities. Assets are things that put money into your pocket. Liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. It sounded simple, yet it was revolutionary. Most people buy things they think are assets, like a bigger house or a new car, but in reality, those things take money away in the form of loans, taxes, or maintenance. The rich buy assets, Rich Dad said. The poor and middle class buy liabilities, but they think they're assets. This single concept became the foundation of everything I would later teach in life. Observing the real world, Rich Dad often took us along when he visited his various businesses. He owned convenience stores, rental properties, and other small ventures. While Poor Dad would spend hours grading papers or preparing lessons, Rich Dad spent hours analyzing deals, looking at numbers, and talking to other investors. From him, we learned that money wasn't just something you earned with sweat. Money was a tool, and the more you understood how to use it, the more it could work for you. He would say, the rich focus on acquiring assets, while everyone else focuses on income. This was such a different way of looking at life compared to what we heard from school and society. The rat race. As I grew older, I started to notice how many people lived trapped in what Rich Dad called the rat race. Here's how it worked. A person gets a job, they earn money. As soon as they start making more money, they buy a bigger house, a nicer car, or more luxuries. Their expenses rise, and they end up needing the paycheck even more. To keep up, they work harder, hoping for a raise or promotion. When they get it, they repeat the cycle. Bigger house, nicer car, more expenses, and the cycle goes on, like a hamster running endlessly on a wheel. Poor Dad, despite being highly educated, was also caught in this cycle. He believed in working harder, saving more, and climbing the ladder. But Rich Dad kept saying, don't climb the ladder, own the ladder. That one line stuck with me forever. The fear and greed trap rich. Dad explained that two emotions control most people when it comes to money: fear and greed. Fear of not having enough makes people work harder for money. Greed makes them spend whatever they earn on things they think will bring happiness. It's this push and pull of fear and greed that keeps millions of people stuck in jobs they don't love, working for money instead of making money work for them. He told us, the moment you let emotions control your decisions, you stop thinking. That's why so many people fall into the rat race. They don't stop to ask themselves, is this an asset or a liability? Breaking free. The way out of the rat race, Rich Dad emphasized, was simple in concept but difficult in practice. Build assets. Keep expenses low. Reinvest income from assets into more assets. Poor Dad wanted me to climb the corporate ladder, but Rich Dad wanted me to build my own ladder. He showed me that true freedom didn't come from a paycheck, but from having passive income. Money that flowed in whether you worked or not, and that marked the deeper shift in my thinking. I started to see why so many people struggle financially despite working so hard, and why the rich seem to grow richer even when they weren't working 9-to-5 jobs. The importance of financial literacy. Rich Dad always reminded us that financial literacy is the foundation of wealth. Without it, even a millionaire could lose everything. He explained, you don't become rich by how much money you make. You become rich by how much money you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations you keep it for. Most people, he said, don't even know the basics of money. They may know how to read and write, but they can't read financial statements. And if you can't read numbers, you can't recognize opportunities. Cash flow and the language of money. Rich Dad taught us to study income statements and balance sheets. At first it was confusing, but soon we began to understand how money truly flowed. He showed us, The poor have expenses that eat up all their income. The middle class buy liabilities they think are assets. The rich acquire assets that create income, which then pays for their luxuries. This lesson shaped the way I viewed every financial decision later in life. Poor Dad always encouraged getting good grades to secure a safe job. Rich Dad encouraged building financial intelligence so that even if you lost everything, you could rebuild. The more financially literate you become, the more opportunities you'll see, he said. Working to learn, not to earn. One of the most life-changing lessons Rich Dad gave me was this: don't work for money. Work to learn. Most people choose jobs for security or salary. But Rich Dad believed jobs should be like schools, places where you gain skills, not just paychecks. He encouraged us to learn sales, marketing, communication, and investing. Even if the jobs didn't pay much, the skills would pay us forever. The rich are not the smartest people, he explained. They simply find smart people to work for them. If you can lead, communicate, and manage money, you will never be poor. Specialization versus generalization. Poor Dad always pushed for specialization, become an expert in one field. But Rich Dad taught us to diversify our skills. He wanted us to understand the bigger picture of business, not just one piece of it. That's why he made us work in different parts of his businesses, stocking shelves, managing books, talking to customers. Each small task gave us a new perspective. He knew that the broader our skills, the stronger we'd be when it came time to build our own ventures. True wealth. Rich Dad defined wealth in a simple way. Wealth is how long you can survive if you stopped working today. If your passive income covers your expenses for months, years, or even a lifetime, then you are truly wealthy. If your survival depends on your next paycheck, you're not wealthy, no matter how much you earn. This definition changed the way I measured success. It wasn't about a high salary or job title. It was about freedom. With these lessons, the contrast between my two dads became crystal clear. Poor Dad wanted me to follow the traditional path, study hard, get a degree, and find a stable job. Rich Dad wanted me to think differently, gain financial education, acquire assets, and create freedom. Both men loved me and wanted the best for me, but the paths they showed me were completely different. The choice was mine. Friends, this was the story of Rich Dad Poor Dad, a story that teaches us that money is not just about earning, but about understanding, managing, and multiplying it. If you enjoyed this story and found it valuable, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel Soch Ke Sagar for more inspiring and educational stories. Your support gives me the motivation to bring more wisdom-filled content to you. So until next time, keep learning, keep thinking, and stay connected with us here on Soch Ke Sagar.